It's time for Talk With on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM in the city. An opportunity to speak with various government, political, and community leaders about the issues that affect you. Each week, we interview the newsmakers in Anne Arundel County, Queen Anne's County, and our state leaders. Now, here's the host of Talk With, WNAV News Director Jane Schlegel.
Special guest today in studio, Republican Governor Larry Hogan. We talk about a variety of issues as the lawmakers continue to work through the General Assembly session, counting down the days. And it's a busy time with our lawmakers here. I can't wait for them to leave, sir.
Well, you and me both. No, I'm just kidding. We love the time we get to spend together with our legislators. Not that I'm counting, but they're just about 30-some days left.
Not that I'm counting either, but yeah. No, we do a special legislative report as a feature on WNAV since Annapolis is the capital.
Absolutely.
And we do have the lawmakers here and try to keep tabs on what's happening. And there have been over 3,000 bills introduced.
That's about what it was last year as well. And, not far fewer of the number that actually passes, thankfully.
But it's a lot of work to go through.
It's a lot of work. And we try to get involved in the things that we really care about or we think are important to the state. And we don't take a position on every one of the 3,000 bills that are going on down there that may, have not very little chance of passing. So
some of them seem a little bit like, wonder why they're doing this. Like, for instance, the president and vice president can't be on the ballot unless they turn in their tax return.
I'm not sure what the motivation is, but it seems like that may be unconstitutional. I'm not sure they can change the requirements of the President of the United States.
Yeah.
Candidacy for office.
It's been a tough time to watch the Washington politics kind of bleed into the state.
Well, we've been trying our best to stay focused on the state and to not let the politics of Washington. I'm as frustrated as anybody about what's going on in Washington. There's plenty of blame to go around on both sides of Washington, on both sides of the aisle. But we've got a really important job to do here in Annapolis, and so do the legislators. And we've got real serious issues that we need to deal with. And trying to fix Congress or the White House is not really what they hired us to do.
And they can't even pass a budget. It's a state mandate for us.
We pass a balanced budget every single year, and we work together with the legislature. We got it nearly unanimously passed last time, and I can't even remember the last time Congress passed a budget. It must be decades.
Well, it's been a continuing resolution,
yes.
and on and on.
Since the 90s.
It's been a long time, sir. There's no doubt. What is your top priority, and has it changed? And basically because of the political climate we're in with this gun control, school security, etc.
No, you can't point to one thing that's our top priority, but we put probably our most aggressive legislative package this session, and we're moving things along, but we focused on a number of areas. One, on taxes and jobs. So we've been successful in the Senate, and hopefully we'll be in the House, in stopping a $1.2 billion tax increase that would have been automatically taking place with state taxes. So protecting Maryland taxpayers. I believe we're going to get tax relief for retirees, for small businesses, for middle-class taxpayers. Our More Jobs for Marylanders Act, which last year was very successful in creating jobs. We have kind of a 2.0 this year to help more jurisdictions benefit from the creation of jobs and providing incentives. We got a tough crime package, which it looks like we're going to find compromise. Senator Bobby Zirkin in the Senate, the chairman of the committee, they've added a few things in there that we didn't have, and we've compromised back and forth. But it's going to be a tough package with tougher sentences for repeat violent offenders and tougher sentences for people who commit a crime with a gun. Some of these felons that are repeatedly, committing these crimes are just being let back on the streets, and we're going to stop that. Truth in sentencing. So if you're sentenced to a certain length of time, then you should serve that time rather than having it all suspended. So tough crime bills.
Special guest, Governor Larry Hogan, Republican, hoping that the legislature moves on some of his initiatives. More coming up on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV. You're listening to Talk With on your hometown station. I'm Jane Schlegel, your host. Special guest, Republican Governor Larry Hogan, hoping that the legislature moves on some of his initiatives.
Our education accountability, where we're providing record funding for education 4 years in a row, but we're trying to make them more accountable. Number one, accountable for the money that the taxpayers put into these jurisdictions to make sure gets to the classrooms and helps the kids. But also, we've had a number of kind of corruption issues in multiple places. Prince George's County cheating kids out of 5,000 kids, grades being improperly changed. In Baltimore County, issues of bribery and giving out contracts after getting cash payments and envelopes full of cash.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
So we're calling for an IG in education. There isn't one now. The state doesn't have any mechanism for investigating some of this wrongdoing at the local level.
They've done a couple things at the state level with Board of Ed as far as trying to maybe have some added accountability with inspections and so forth.
Sure.
But you just think there needs to be an overall scrub, an overall deep look.
Well, the board, for example, in Prince George's County, the entire Prince George's delegation to Annapolis called on the state to do an investigation of this illegal grade fixing because the county refused to do so. And so the State Board of Ed had to go to an outside contractor to do an investigation. They don't have the capability. They don't have investigators. They don't have the staff. They don't have the funding. So I think this would help have an office that's actually capable and responsible, and it would, be removed from the politics. But on accountability, it's really important. People think we need to properly fund our schools and educate our kids, but they're also concerned about making sure they're accountable
and safe.
So we just announced a program to try to make our schools safer. It includes $125 million, which would come out of the casino revenues.
The lockbox.
The lockbox.
I love the way that sounds.
The lockbox, which we have a lockbox now on the transportation funding. We put a lockbox on Chesapeake Bay funding and on program open space funding because they kept. In the past, they just took billions of dollars out of other programs and spent them on things they weren't supposed to. We ought to do the same thing with education dollars, and it would really add $4.4 billion more to education and help us accomplish a lot. $1 billion in school construction over what we already had was the best in over a decade. But this would add specific money to make sure that the schools are safe. So it would include money to reinforce some of the schools and put in camera systems and lock systems and potentially, many other tougher windows and doors. That's on the construction side. And then $50 million a year to provide for mental health counselors and school resource officers. And look, we're already doing a lot more than most other states, and many of them now are looking at what can they do, and they're taking some of our ideas. But we could do more too. We have some schools that are excellent, and other schools that are really lacking. And every single mom and dad wants to know when they send their kid off to school that they're going to come home safely, and they have a right to know that.
It just seems like a given, doesn't it?
And we never would have contemplated these kinds of things, but now they're happening way too often. Now the good news, at almost the same time frame when this terrible tragedy happened in Florida, in Montgomery County, we stopped a similar one. It was a mom expressed concern about her son, and they did an investigation. The police went out and found an assault weapon. He was threatening to shoot the kids in school, and he's now being evaluated, and he's in behind. He's in with no parole, and they're getting him off. He's not going into school shooting people. In Florida, they went out there 45 times to his house. He was posting on Facebook that he was going to do this. Everybody in the school was afraid of him. So we're supporting red flag legislation that a family can go to court and say, we're concerned that our family member is a threat to themselves or to others, and if it's they got to go through due process, but that you could remove a weapon from somebody. I support the Second Amendment, but I also am a strong believer that we need to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill and the people with criminal records, and that's just a no-brainer to me.
It seems like that's a given too, but we always hear about these domestic incidents. One just recently in Prince George's County, where that young corporal was shot in a domestic incident, and that so often seems to be like, the emotions are high, there's a weapon around. He'd been ordered to turn in his weapons repeatedly and didn't do it.
And under this new legislation, I believe they would no longer we'd be able to have at least a better opportunity to make sure that didn't happen. That was a tragic situation as well. I was at the funeral for that officer, and he was off duty helping a neighbor, and the gentleman was, chasing after. He went in there to save somebody, and he was a true hero. But we have to stop these kinds of instances from happening in the future.
The gentleman's name, Corporal Mushadin Ramzadin from Brandywine, and he did intervene. And as you say, he's definitely a hero. Coming up, the governor discusses transparency in governing and keeping the state of Maryland open and competitive for the business community. We'll be right back on 1430 WNAV. I'm Jane Schlegel, your host. You're listening to Talk With on your hometown station. Special guest, Republican Governor Larry Hogan. On the other end of the spectrum, sir, we're actually considering, or Harford County representation would like for it to be a consideration before our lawmakers to allow enabling legislation for handguns to be carried in houses of worship, sanctuaries, synagogues, etc. I talked with Delegate Shalega. She said, yes, they'd like to see a pilot started in Harford County. Of course, the Harford County Sheriff, Jeff Gaylor, is totally behind this. What are your thoughts?
I don't think that has any chance of passing. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't usually weigh in on some of the 3,000 bills that don't have a chance of passing. But, I said it the other day with our school safety. I'm for local jurisdictions and the schools want to make a decision to have trained, armed resource officers or police officers. That's okay. But I'm not for, having teachers, biology teachers walking around with guns in the schools. And so I think that's a step too far. And, that legislation is probably never going to reach my desk.
Okay. I did ask her, I said, are more guns the answer to more gun violence?
I don't think that's the right answer.
And not that you're not a proponent of the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the other issue that I wanted to bring up, if possible, is the young people that came down to testify, as many people do come and testify before committees. These young people were specifically supporting the Tobacco 21 measure. Is that something that your administration would consider?
I think that we're definitely willing to consider it. I don't know. We haven't really had a whole lot of input from the legislature. I didn't see the testimony of the kids that came down, but it's something we would certainly take a look at if it reaches our desk. And I know our legislative team will be talking with legislators about their feelings on the subject.
I just wondered because, they're talking about the unlegislated use of vaping devices, and there's these Juuls and other things. They said in schools it's pretty rampant apparently, and there's not really laws. It kind of took over a market, but there was never any kind of laws
well, that's
about
something we'll
it.
take a closer look at.
It'd be interesting to see what you think will come out of that. So the budget you think is non-issue. Business
well, I don't know
community?
about that. We're, there are always disagreements about what should and shouldn't be included. We're looking at the revenue estimates, and we're looking at tax revenues and what happens with the changes in federal law and what we're trying to protect taxpayers from increases, but they can make changes to the budget. They just can't increase it. And so it's a tough budget, but I believe we're going to find common ground and get it done.
Well, that is good news. Now, you mentioned retirees and their pensions. I was talking with a local chamber leader, Raj Kajadkar. He heads up the Central Maryland Chamber. I asked him if he was going to run for office. I mean, he's
good.
That good, sir. He
Well,
totally is.
I don't know that I know him well, but I think more people that have a business background is definitely a good thing because there are far too many people in the legislature that don't know what it's like to be a small business person.
Well, they've taken a hit this year for sure. Now that they're considering the $15 minimum, do you think that legislation might pass? Because they said the sick leave bill really put them behind the curve.
Well, on $15 minimum wage, I don't think it is going to pass. But we'll wait and see over the next 34 days. I'm pretty sure that is probably not going to make it through the Senate. On the sick leave, we're still hopeful. We were concerned from the beginning about. Everybody, I think, most people believe that people should have the right to earn sick leave, and that's something that would be good for everybody to have. Nobody's really against that, and that's something we can agree on. But how you get there, and we were trying to provide incentives and provide tax incentives for businesses to be able to pay for it, so they could offer it giving them a break so that they could provide these benefits. And the Senate and the House are still considering that legislation. So their bill passed. My main concern was that it's going to kill small businesses and cost us thousands of jobs. If they pass our companion bill, though, it will mitigate that damage, and we're still hopeful that we can get that done. And that way, the businesses will get a tax break to help offset the costs of providing these benefits. And so that's what we're hoping people will push for. And we're feeling confident that at least we have a pretty good shot at getting it done. We've been fighting, for this for a couple of years now.
If we can keep you for just a couple minutes longer, sir. Transparency is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit on all levels of government. What is your administration doing maybe to enhance that transparency between government and constituents?
Well, on the good government stuff. So about almost 80% of the people in Maryland are in favor of nonpartisan redistricting. And
oh, my gosh. Gerrymandering. Please do something.
It really is not a Republican issue, a Democrat issue. It's not a liberal or conservative issue. Almost everyone agrees, except for the folks that are drawing the lines to serve themselves.
How about that?
And they haven't brought it up for a hearing. It's something that nearly everyone in Maryland supports, and we have the worst gerrymandered districts in the nation. And so we're pushing to get that done. And in addition, I'm for term limits, and most people in Maryland and the rest of the country are as well. And they haven't heard that bill either. But we just have people that have kind of lost touch with who they're supposed to be representing, and they stay in there forever. And I've been pushing term limits for 20-some years, and we ought to have them at the federal level as well for Congress. But we do have those bills, and making the legislature more transparent. We're one of only 7 states in the nation that doesn't live stream video of the legislative proceedings, and even
the committee meetings.
Oh, some of the committee meetings are, but some of our committee meetings are, but in the chamber, none of it is. So we're one of only 7 states, and we have provided legislation a couple years in a row and funding to get this done. It's not hard to do, and that way people can, here in Annapolis. People, maybe if they had the time to get off of work, they could drive over to the State House and listen. But people from all over the state, they want to follow what's going on and how these decisions are being made. And so transparency, good government, free and fair elections, and ending lifetime career professional politicians.
What about campaign finance reform while we got you on a good mood?
Well, campaign finance reform is something I've been in favor of for a long time. I'm not sure we're going to get a whole lot of it passed this year, but I'm the only governor in the history of the state to ever be elected on public financing. So we spent, I guess we raised about $2 million to $20 million with my opponent, and we were able to do it. So I'm for trying to make the process fairer and cleaner, and to take some of the big money out of it.
Okay. Campaign finance reform, business climate, open for business. Maryland's Governor Larry Hogan in the studio for Talk With on your hometown station. See more local news and area events on our website at 1430wnav.com. We have a social media page, Facebook. Follow us, like us there, and enjoy on-demand features like the governor's interview, which will be available this week as an on-demand feature. WNAV.com, we are your hometown station in the Capitals.
You've been listening to Talk With on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM in the city. A weekly program focusing on various government, political, and community leaders, speaking about the issues that affect you. Join us again next Monday afternoon at 2 for Talk With on your hometown station, 99.9 FM and 1430 WNAV.